Did you meet Candice?
So meeting Candice is an interesting story. Candice was like the super, super hot New York City girl with like the ultra fancy boyfriend. And I was like this fucking kind of dope who had no money, but was like,
no offense, Casey. I know who you are.
You don't know who I was in 2004. In 2004, I was just like this fucking maniac. It's like this 23-year-old maniac who like, I lived in an SRO, a single room occupancy. Oh. So I had no bathroom and no kitchen in my apartment. It was just a 12 by 12 box. Oh, the bathroom was down the hall.
Yeah.
Like you go in there and sometimes there'd be needles on the floor. Like just don't step on them. Like sometimes there'd be blood all over the sink. Like, well, I'll brush my teeth tomorrow. Yeah. Like that was my lifestyle. And like, she's this really glamorous girl. And I found out she broke up with her boyfriend. I just like cold called her. I'm like, hey, you remember me? And she's like, I think so. Who are you? Are you the guy with the kid? And I'm like, yeah, you want to go out?
Guy with the kid. By the way, it's funny. You know someone's voice, like when you've watched enough of them, and I can totally hear her saying that. Are you the guy with the kid?
That was like 27-year-old Candice. Yeah. And so she wouldn't go out with me or call me back. And then Van and I were both invited to a bar mitzvah in Houston. And Candice is from, like, she grew up in Houston. She's born in South Africa. She grew up in Houston.
I'm dying to know about her background because I can't put my finger on it. If it's blood diamonds or like where her family's like.
It's not that sexier intro. It sort of is. Like they're South African. Like they're all South African. When
she born and raised there.
Yeah, but she they emigrated to the United States when she was fairly young because shit started to go really south. This is when like Mandela was in jail. Like the whites were trying to stay in power down there. Mm-hmm. And her family, like some of her family history, like they fought on behalf of the native Black South Africans. Like they're good. Her
good
lineage,
side of the fence of history to be on.
They're on the right side of the fence, but it got very tumultuous, very scary for them. So her parents are like not quite as sexy as blood diamonds. They're physicians. Her dad's a doctor.
Damn it.
Sorry, I know, not as romantic, but and at the time they were like they needed doctors in Australia and they needed doctors in Texas. And if you passed the board in South Africa, they would sort of accept that in either of those two locations. And her mother fucking hates the Australian accent. So like, I guess we're moving to Texas.
Oh, wow.
So they like upped and left their whole life behind in South Africa and moved to Houston, lived in a hotel until her dad kind of figured it out. And she was raised in Houston and would spend, like a decent percentage of her years back in South Africa.
Yeah.
Like the story of it that really hits it for me was like her family's house burned down in Texas. Like came home, everything's gone. And her and her sister were like 4 and 6 or something like that. And her mom brought her to Target, bought him a backpack, bought him clothes, filled the backpack up with clothes, brought them to the airport and put these 2 little kids on an airplane by themselves and just sent them to South Africa. Because like, what were her parents supposed to do? They had no place to live. They had to figure out, like their whole life just burned down literally. So they just shipped the kids off to South Africa. And hearing Candice tell the story of being like 6 or 8-year-old just flying to Cape Town by herself, that's like a 20-hour flight.
No, for me, it was a 33-hour flight. It was like through London.
Yeah, through London's the quickest way now. But in any event, so like that was sort of her upbringing. So when we got invited to the bar mitzvah in Texas, she was like, if you want to stay at my parents' house, you can. And we're like, do I?
She's not there.
She was there. She was also invited to the bar mitzvah because she knew the person because they were from Houston.
Oh, wow.
The kid's dad was a patron of the art. So he sort of knew us because Van and I were in the art world.
Yeah.
She knew him because of a similar connection. So we're staying at her house and I was like, fuck, man, this is all I need. Like, I got this girl. I got her cornered. Like, I got this. And like, Bert, you should know, like, she rejected me really coldly.
Yeah.
And I always say to her, like, we see 2 kids later who had the last fucking laugh here, lady.
Yeah. Oh, like, what's great is knowing who this sounds, I hope this comes off right. Knowing who Candice is just from vlogs, the fact that she married you shows you how good of a person she is. Because in my head, I kept going, Casey is not from the same pedigree as Candice.
No, she is royalty.
And so literally, I mean, I remember there was one time where she gave you a Rolex for something and I was like,
really broke it.
Yeah, and you were like, I was like, this is not the guy to give a Rolex to.
No, like I'm wearing a plastic watch right now. Like everything I own is made out of rubber.
Yeah.
No, she, the story I always tell about her is it's like, I never was single when I had money or fame. all I had when I was like single out there mixing it up was this face. Like this is my own, this is
You
it.
have had that face since you were a child. The picture of you and Van on
When we were
his,
little kids.
I go,
Recognizable, right?
that is Casey Neistat to a T.
No, I have
exact same
never
smile.
looked different. But like that was it. And Candice, like we still went out. And like the story I love to tell is like, especially like when I was making the vlog and like our lives got fancy and everybody's like, oh, she just likes him because she's such a bitch in the vlog. It's awesome. Everybody's like,
it's great.
it's such a good character. Everybody's like, she only likes him because he's like, you know, got money and he's got fame. So that's why she likes him. And it's like, little do they know. Like I remember the days when she would come to Connecticut with me because I wouldn't stay in the city on the weekends. So I had to be with my boy. And she would come to Connecticut with me and it was like, look, your choice is you can like stay with me and Owen in my grandmother's like guest bedroom, or we can like, it was really like fucking humiliating. Here's this girl, like her previous boyfriend, like the guy owned like a half a dozen hotels. And I'm like, you know, we got to take the train or the bus to Connecticut and then stay at my Nana's house. And like every once in a while, she would like get us a hotel room that we could stay in. So we'd have like some place to stay with my kid and like use her credit card.